What's up, my humans? Welcome to episode 7 of the Conscious Hotline. We are having a particularly magical and mystical episode prepared for you today. We have a good friend of mine and a very accomplished psychic medium and channel, Lauren Morrissey, who is going to get real with us on the topic of toxic spirituality and how to approach the guru culture that exists in the spiritual space, in the wellness space. So I see that Lauren has logged on. I'll just wait for her to request to join, and then you'll get to see both of our faces. Lucky you guys. Man, it is hot here today. Literally hot. Here we go. With nature is my medicina. I'm so excited.
Hello, Walter.
Look at you, honey. Oh my God. Like this is your artwork. This is your space. You look beautiful.
So do you. You're like, it's such a hot day here. I'm like, well, you're looking quite steamy yourself.
Well, you know what's funny is that I just thought of this expression that the cowboys used to say on this ranch where I used to live in Colorado, and they would say, man, today it's hotter than two rats fucking in a wool sock. That's what it feels like. Okay. I just set the tone for this conversation.
I love it. Some good cowboy humor.
Yes. So thank you for being with us. You know, you are an intuitive healer. You're a psychic medium. You are a very talented and very clear channel, if I may say so myself, because a lot of people can talk about channeling, you know, and I think the quality of the channeling is based only on the quality of the channel themselves. So.
Well, thank you so much for having me on here today. And it's such an honor to be discussing more of this work and also to just be in this space with you that you've created. So thank you.
Well, you're very gracious. You're very gracious. But let's dive in kind of like this edgy, dangerous way, right? I'm sorry, but you signed up for this.
Let's do it. I did sign up for it. So let's go.
So we like to start every episode by asking our guest a question, just to get more of a sense of your personality, what's going on for you energetically. Mm-hmm. So the question I would like to pose to you this morning is, what is one aspect of your shadow that you are looking at, that you're grappling with, that you are trying to integrate?
Mm-hmm. So one aspect of my shadow that I'm really trying to integrate is codependency due to some like unhealthier tendencies and dynamics that I encountered from a very young age in my childhood. Mm-hmm. And being an empathic individual has led me to sometimes in relation and romantic contexts to be semi-codependent or to fall into a codependent tendency or to seek someone else's validation to feel internally fulfilled. Ooh. And so yeah, that's been really beautiful and delicate to revisit that particular dynamic, because I think that, you know, having some forms of validation is healthy within community and relationship and familial context, but also there's a very fine line of where it's a healthy balance and where we are becoming dependent on another's existence to validate our own. So
yes, and you know, I think this is a real and present reality for so many of us who work in the healing arts. Mm-hmm. No, because maybe we come into this awareness of an alternative, of a way of being healthy, because we imagine that we will have a better chance of survival if we can heal the people around us who are exhibiting toxic behavioral tendencies.
Yes, and I couldn't have said it better myself, but also catching, especially in the healer facilitation role catching yourself when you're trying to push those dynamics into your personal life, into your relationships, and when you're going into this martyr tendency that not only takes away from you and your own essence, but also the individual if they're really not ready to meet you in that space and don't have a desire to meet you in that space. So.
Sure, because then you might just be prolonging or enabling some kind of a self-destructive pattern or behavior that exists in the other. You know, it can be a way of avoiding something that is an unhealed aspect of our own psyche. And all, you know, just in general, I think to sum it up, it's this belief that like, oh, if you're okay, then I'm okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes. And from that, I've found in my own personal experience, it just creates so many different imbalances in other areas of my life. So it's really been humbling and beautiful to keep checking in with that part and to see where I'm at and be like, all right, where are we at right now? And
well,
just,
yeah.
yeah.
I love how honest and transparent you are about that, because I think it is very relevant to this topic of entering the spiritual space.
Yes.
Having the willingness to explore self-love, to explore limiting beliefs that could be holding us back, to explore how there might be physical manifestations of disease in our body as a result of chronic thought patterns or beliefs, you know, whichever door you use to enter into the wellness space. On the other side of that is going to be a person, a mentor, a healer, a role model, a teacher of some kind, most likely that you will connect with, in the hope that this guide, this mentor, will show you how to heal.
Yes.
And you and I both have a history of living in communities that are highly spiritual. And I'm just wondering if you can speak more about your experience with that and toxic spirituality.
Yes, so this actually coincides perfectly with a little bit of what I shared as far as the codependency and the shadow. And I feel like that was mirrored to me living in a lot of different spiritual communities around the world. And I'm so blessed because I've had so many incredible teachers, mentors, guides to assist me along my journey. And yet within these different communities, I really was blessed to see kind of the underbelly of some of the spiritual systems, some spiritual hierarchies, some of the competitive nature that happens in the healing community. And so going in coincidence with the codependency, I think for individuals who are highly empathic, who are looking to shift, change, transform when they're in a vulnerable state in their lives, when they're feeling depleted, when they're feeling lost, when they're feeling low, and if they come into this space of, you know, whether it be a spiritual community, whether it be any kind of community, and they observe kind of the foundations of the community, and that community in particular is built on a system of hierarchy and has, you know, perhaps one individual, whether it be a guru, whether it be one leader in particular, who so much of the community is giving their energy, their vision, their spirituality, their emotional attention to so vigorously, it can be extremely damaging. And so throughout my journey with so many different teachers, leaders, mentors, and in different conscious or spiritual communities, I started to notice that some of these leaders, some of these more like guru kind of figures, after spending more and more time in these environments, as I began to grow as an individual, that began to impose a threat on this hierarchical. And so it became very clear to me as I continued to choose. I think on a soul level, I chose a lot of these different experiences to
Hmm.
get a little bit more of a taste of the underbelly of the spiritual community. And this happens
Mhm.
a lot in, cults or in religious communities as well.
Mhm.
Politics, it's not just in reference to the spiritual community, but oftentimes can be very well hidden due to, we're praying, we're in the space of meditation, we're in the space of receptivity, we're downloading, we're receiving, we're sharing, we're in this omniscient love, I think it can be very easily masked. We're in plant medicine ceremonies, we're connecting with the divine. There are so many ways to do that, but where I find it very dangerous and what I've found in my own journey, when you come to a point where you're growing and you're evolving and you're expanding, and that may make other leaders, gurus uncomfortable. And so then you may notice a little bit of a hinge or tinge of the energy just completely changing once you come out of that space of profound and extreme vulnerability. Like, someone help me, take my hand, lead me out of this dark tunnel. And once you start to trust within yourself, your own abilities, your own foundations, and then you notice that those leaders aren't as excited to help you. They're not as supportive as they watch you in your profound growth and personal power. That's when it gets really interesting.
Can I ask you like a question about this, perhaps even a more personal question about this? Have you experienced personally, working with a teacher, a guide of some kind, jealousy from that person who is somehow, taking responsibility for your spiritual growth, your spiritual path, as you've grown, as you've come more into your power and your unique gifts?
Yes, I remember in particular with one teacher, I would have very distinct visions, very clear, receptive messages that would come through. And sometimes, their response to these messages, to my growth, would be, "You're not ready yet. You have a really long ways to go." And just kind of continuous spiel of how I had so much further to go. I wasn't ready yet. But then if we'd be in a situation where they really needed my advice or consultation, they would kind of love bomb me and be like, "Oh, well, you're so gifted. I really want your insight. I really want your input on this." So it was an interesting dynamic, because in a space where my opinion was needed for their own gain, at that moment I was a clear channel. At that moment I was powerful. But when they felt threatened, or there was some energy of envy within that dynamic at that time, and they're afraid of me growing and progressing, then it would be a very much different conversation and communication. Like, "You have a very long ways to go. You slow down. You're not there yet. You have a long ways to go." So yes, I've definitely
Mm-hmm.
experienced that, and it took a lot of time and grappling with my intuition to understand what that was. And now, because of that experience, I'm very quick to pick up on that energy with other mentors or potential teachers or shamans, different people that are in my realm, and to kind of sniff it out and to feel if the dynamic has that element presenting itself naturally.
Beautiful. I'm a strong believer that we come into relationship with whatever it is that we need in that moment at that time, as mysterious as the circumstances may be, in terms of it being a terribly traumatic experience on some level. I do believe that it was needed, and so perhaps in some way connecting with a false prophet. Sorry, this is like a terrible oh my God. I don't mean to get into any kind of like religious terminology here, but to engage with someone who doesn't necessarily have your best interests at
Mm-hmm.
heart. And your power, your empowerment, your growth at heart. Perhaps that relationship is the avenue into your own empowered self-actualization, your own realization of the light that is within you, even in the darkest of circumstances. And yet, you know, if we can give some advice to our audience today in terms of some warning signs, some red flags, you know, and just when I think I know, you know, all about red flags. I mean, I used to say like, oh, you want to be in my life? Like, please, like a bouquet of red flags, you know, and I'm yours, you know. So, you know, that's been my journey, getting there slowly. But like, what are some like red flags that you could, I think the first one being someone who delegitimizes the fact that you ultimately are your own healer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? To disempower you by saying, oh, you're not ready yet, you're not there yet.
Right.
You know,
right.
what are some other red flags that you can, that would help you sniff out?
Sure. Yes, and I completely agree with you. I'm so grateful that I had these opportunities with these in particular teachers, because it taught me so much, and it's really helped me as well to be very clear when I'm assisting other people, to make sure that I'm in a very clear space to be doing such without any other, you know, unconscious or subconscious or weird agendas. So as far as red flags, like you said, anytime someone is delegitimizing your gifts, or, you know, trying to take away from or knock down or demean anything that you feel in your heart is important to you and something that you are very passionate about, big red flag, run. Number two, number two, so if you are working with a mentor, a teacher, someone that you're confiding in, and you are doing any kind of work with them, and you find that, you know, their communication is a little bit manipulative, and it feels as if they are oftentimes acting out of their own gain when you two are co-creating, that's also a big red flag. So if they're not honoring your space and time, and they've put themselves on a big pedestal, time you're working with someone, whether they've energetically, physically tried to put themselves on some kind of pedestal and throw you in a space of a lower realm, that's a red flag. Also, your body. I think a lot of times, you know, in the spiritual community, especially in the channeling, psychic, medium community, there is a big loss of being embodied and being fully in your body. And some of my biggest signs when I've been in trying or difficult situations where I was like, man, this is not right for me, it was my body speaking to me. I would have like a sharp pain in my stomach. I would feel, you know, anxiety deep within my belly. I would feel an aching, a literal aching in my heart, or I would feel a closing energy in my throat as if I felt uncomfortable to clearly communicate. And if you don't feel comfortable communicating and being yourself around this person, then I would highly advise you to rethink who you're working with. For me, looking back, you know, like you said, there was a bouquet of red flags. And at that moment, I was like, oh, not a big deal. Not a big deal. I have compassion in my heart. Maybe it's me. Let's keep pushing.
Maybe it's me.
Oh, the famous maybe. Wow. But looking back and seeing how much of myself I was compromising just to be in connection with these teachers or these individuals or these particular relationships, I'm in awe. I could barely communicate for myself and what I was honestly feeling in those moments. So if you find yourself doing that, and it's very out of your character, you find yourself feeling very uncomfortable just being who you are as you're co-creating with this person, working on transformation and growth and expansion, I highly encourage you to rethink who you're working with, please.
Yes, so, powerful.
Well, thank you.
So let's talk a little bit more about what it is that you do in the healing arts space, because I think that some people watching this might only understand psychic phenomena through the lens of like Harry Potter, or they might see extrasensory perception or psychic ability as something that is purely just a mental construct, an illusion. And, you know, you and I embrace this as a fundamental aspect of our cosmology, and that we can connect not only to our higher self, but to other higher consciousness that exists. And so I would love for you to describe what that looks like for you when you are actually practicing a channeling session, an intuitive reading with a client. What is your process?
Okay, so first I want to start off by saying as well, you know, for those of you that are watching, and again, the psychic realm, the medium realm, connecting with people who have passed on feels very foreign to you, that's okay. What I oftentimes explain to my clients or to people who are curious about these realms and connecting with these different parts of self and spirituality and spirits, what I explain is that, you know, genetically, some people come into this life, this existence, this human body with certain genetic dispositions or certain genetic strengths, and they come in with a very physically strong body, and it's within their genes, within their DNA, and they're extremely athletic, and they come into this lifetime being naturally athletic due to their genes. And also, I think the same is true and possible for spiritual gifts. So I believe that I came into this life very open and have continued and chosen to stay open to these different phenomena or these different abilities and senses. And so while one individual may have a very strong sense of smell or a very extremely strong physical physique, and that's a natural part of their experience, I have a very strong psychic and energetic empathic sense.
Yes.
So a lot of my, I guess, visionary, creative, spiritual senses are more turned on. So for me, what a session looks like for each individual, I'm very, very particular about setting the energetic space. We discuss kind of what the process looks like and what we allow energetically within the container at that time, asking their permission first before I go into their field. And I'm receiving a lot of information about different situations and people constantly, but for me, from my own energetic standpoint and for energetic sovereignty and respecting other people's boundaries, I ask. So I say, you know, do I have permission to go into your field? And once they've clearly stated yes, and you've set a clear energetic container where we have both visualized this very safe, clean, clear space, then I go into the field of their mind, their body, their spirit, and their soul. And so that looks very different for each individual. When I'm doing an intuitive reading, I may get a very particular image from when they were 5 years old and they were bullied by one individual on the playground, and they didn't think that it affected them, and now here they are 38 years old, and they've had this continual pattern of believing that they won't be accepted in community. That's just like a kind of random example. And then for another individual, I may go into their field and I may see inflammation within their gut, and then I get a message that they're having issues processing their emotions. They're extremely inflamed due to emotional, spiritual, and physical situations. And then for another individual, depending on where they're at, I may be having certain ancestral figures from their lineage coming in and communicating with me, saying that there's a particular pattern that their lineage has been repeating lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. They are at the brink, at the climax of that pattern, and if they so choose, they've been the one that has been chosen within their lineage to really address this. And it looks very different for each individual, and I think that's what keeps the work so exciting and so humbling, because I also include a lot of different shamanic practices and co-creation with the earth, sky, and different spirits and
Mhm.
their assistance, and using that relationship and that sacred connection to assist us and propel us in this work, depending on what is present for each individual.
Beautifully said. You know, and in the couple of minutes that we have left, you know, we have, I think, addressed the potential audience members for whom this is like a foreign concept in some way, or may exist kind of on the fringe of what they would embrace as a facet of reality. And then again, I think there will be a lot of people watching who also feel like they have a deeply empathic relationship with the world around them, and they pick up on other people's energies, moods, perhaps become easily fatigued in crowded places, perhaps feel easily drained in certain relationship dynamics, perhaps they avoid watching the news or things of that nature because they take on a lot of stimulation energetically from the world around them. And so what advice could you give someone in that situation in order to create more of like a sovereign relationship with their own energy so that they can continuously feel charged and safe?
Yes. So, really quick, I'm also gonna answer Andre's question. I think he said Gestalt. So I also do a lot of Gestalt work where we're addressing different parts of you that are wanting to be spoken to. And I actually just finished a 9-month counseling training where we did a lot of Gestalt in particular to address those pieces and parts. So yes, that is a part of the work as well. But to answer your question, Altair, one thing that's been really important for myself that I have to practice daily, before I even really started tuning more deeply into the psychic and medium and spirit world and spirit realm, has been meditation and cleaning my energetic field through visualization meditation. And taking time, whether it be in the morning, whether it be just a few seconds in the middle of my day, whether it be at the end of the day, and to visualize this beautiful, brilliant light coming down from the heavens and really clearing and cleaning my physical, mental, spiritual, etheric body. And when I'm finished with that process and relieving and releasing any of that energy that feels dense, that feels heavy, that feels anxiety ridden, that feels panicky, fight or flight mode, I visualize giving that back to the earth to be recycled, to be alchemized, or giving that back to the sun and all of its brilliance and its brightness and its magnitude. And that has been a really powerful practice for me. And I do a lot of deep visualization journeys with clients so they can start forming a practical tool of just visualizing moving this energy out of your physical body, out of your spirit, out of your mind. Because in today's world, we are approached with so much continuous stimulation in all directions. And so visualizing this energy moving and being released has been extremely powerful for me on a physical level. Some of my physical ailments and illnesses and dis-ease have actually went away due to this visualization and this moving of energy. And once I'm finished with that, I'm very clear to visualize a beautiful, brilliant, kind of rainbow, tightly encapsulated, wrapped, energetic bubble around me to keep my energy in. And I say, this bubble that I've placed has been placed here very particularly. So I am not taking in any inversions, any miasmas, anybody else's energy. I'm not taking in anyone else's stuff, and I'm just dealing with my own energy. And I can do that any time in the day. If I'm feeling super open and sensitive, I just quickly visualize that rainbow encapsulated energetic orb, and I say to myself, I do not consent to any unwanted energies, any unwanted programs, anyone else's energy within my field, and I'm staying clear within this container. And sometimes I do that once a day, sometimes I do that depending on the day, like 5 times a day. Each day is different. So
Okay, and I love that you emphasize the fact that it's a practice that can be integrated into a daily routine, because that makes it very real. I think that gives it a kind of tangible nature.
Hmm. And I think it also really just helps to ground me and to have a better understanding, you know, when you are open, when you are empathic, or when you're feeling as if you're taking on other people's energy, it is really nice sometimes to just clean the vessel and say, okay, this is mine, this is not mine. Especially when you are empathic or energetically sensitive, that can definitely be a struggle to understand and to feel into what's yours and what you may have picked up unknowingly.
Yes. Okay. You know, and I think it's helpful to really talk about it in these physical terms, because even though what we're referring to is the non-physical, it
Mm-hmm.
still exists and is a part of our body.
Mm-hmm.
And just as we would take a shower to cleanse ourselves of like physical residue, it's possible to take a shower and cleanse ourselves of that energetic residue, right?
Yes, I think it's oftentimes very overlooked, you know, how important that energetic cleanliness is as well. And with most of my clients that I see, when they're having dis-ease or they're having, you know, a spiritual or emotional issue, oftentimes I will get a very particular read around heaviness or pain in their shoulder, their back, their stomach, or different parts of the body where they're unconsciously and sometimes consciously holding a lot of this emotional and spiritual tension. So, yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, darling, thank you for all of the insights that you shared with us today. Thank you for your wisdom. I could talk to you for hours more. You know, I hope that some of our audience members know that they can reach out to you and continue a conversation that could, you know, end up being perhaps what it is that they're looking for in terms of a spiritual guide that takes very seriously the integrity and the humility and the responsibility that is required in the work that we do. So I'll make sure that we have all of your details in the notes in the comment section of this show.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Altair. And you're just such a brilliant, beautiful, bountiful light of so much incredible wisdom and creativity. So thank you so much for allowing me to be on this platform with you and for putting this together. You're just such a gem amongst gems. So thank you so much, Altair. Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
watching.
Yes,
Thank you
thank you
so
to
much.
everyone who tuned in live. Thank you, Lauren, for being a hot and conscious element of my life. And I love you, honey. I'm sending you a big kiss. And
Likewise.
thank you for tuning into the Conscious Hotline.
Love you so much. Thank you. And if any
Bye.
of you have,
Oh,
feel free to reach out to me.
yes, we'll make sure that we have all of your info in there. So I hope that this becomes a vehicle for a continued conversation. So
Thank you, Altair.
thank you, honey.
Bye.
Bye.